I think I'm going to take a moment now and I'm going to introduce the next speaker in our morning plenary session. And again, this workshop is really about driving thinking, highlighting success stories, and motivating action. And our next speaker is certainly someone that knows about action and knows about getting things done. Andrew McElwaine is the new president of the American Farmland Trust. Andrew has a very rich background in these issues that we're here discussing today. Andrew was most recently the president and CEO of the Conservancy of Southwest Florida, located in Naples. While he was in Florida at the Conservancy, he helped lead a successful state campaign for a state constitutional amendment to reduce property taxes on land that was permanently protected, and sought solutions to Florida's water and growth management problems. The Conservancy that he was with managed over 25,000 acres of permanently protected land. Prior to being there, he was the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Environmental Council. And as the president of the council, he co-chaired two successful statewide bond initiatives that generated over $1 billion in conservation financing. Prior to being at the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, Andrew was the director of environmental programs at the Pittsburgh-based Heinz Endowments, was a staff member on President George Bush's Commission on Environmental Quality, and a senior legislative assistant to the late U.S. Senator John Heinz. So Andrew just joined AFT less than 6 months ago. As someone that works in my capacity, you're always happy to see your boss visit. And I will say that when Andrew came to AFT, he recognized that New York was on the progressive front of many of these issues across the country. And I'm very happy to say that Andrew's already in his first few months here been in New York 3 times and visiting farms in the Hudson Valley, been meeting with leaders in New York City, and I'm very much looking forward to touring with Andrew to see other parts of New York State and see the tremendous wealth of partners and leaders that we have here in this state. So please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Andrew McElwaine.
Thank you very much, David, and it's humbling to be on the street named for one of our staff people, Laura Tenai. So that's quite an honor. Maybe it was your day. But I think that gives you a sense of the deep roots that this organization has in New York. We were founded 34 years ago when people from all over the country, New Yorkers, including Julia's family, and also many others, came together and looked at the loss of our most productive farmland to urban sprawl and overdevelopment, and the environmental and economic problems that conversion resulted in, and felt they needed an organization that could work at the national level and at the regional level to address the loss of such a precious natural resource. And so delighted to be here 34 years later, and also only the 3rd president of the organization in the last 27 years. So and quite an honor to be associated with you. I want to thank David and Laura for all the good work they did in pulling this together. As David mentioned, I used to run a conservancy that covered South Florida, and when I went out this morning to look around and maybe get some little exercise, I was thinking, gee, maybe that wasn't such a bad job. But I am delighted to be in a state that is in many ways progressive on promoting new local and regional opportunities for agriculture. I'm also impressed and delighted by the turnout. It reminds me of something that New York Yankees catcher Yogi Berra once said, which is nobody goes there anymore, it's just too crowded. So thank you all for your time and attention today. It's gratifying and humbling to see so many of you who are so anxious to work on some very difficult issues. And let me say that we are working, those of us who are in the field, as we all are, of farmland protection, we are working with some very difficult issues. We have found from the U.S. Department of Agriculture that every acre of U.S. farmland lost to development requires 3 to 6 acres elsewhere in the world to be converted into agriculture and make up for the lost production. And repeated studies show that in the developing world, most land converted to agriculture is coming at the expense of tropical forests. Between 2000 and 2012, global deforestation occurred on 580,000 square miles, an area larger than the state of Alaska. Global food production at the same time, according to the FAO, needs to increase 70% by 2050 in order to keep up with population growth, and 40% has to come from the United States. 90% of the world's arable land is already in agricultural production. But farmland protection is more than just food. It is also a major part of other solutions. For instance, urban land emits 75 times the CO2 of farmland. And at the same time, we're losing local and regional farmland. We face an epidemic of childhood diabetes and childhood obesity from unhealthy food and from lack of adequate nutrition and exercise. Unfortunately, farmland protection is not keeping up with the needs we have. Since 1980, nearly an acre of farmland has been lost to development every hour. A total of 21 million acres of productive farmland has been consumed in that time period. And 37% of the total is prime farmland, often adjacent to new urbanizing areas. This creates what David and I call farming on the edge. And many states, during the recession, suspended or even eliminated funding for farmland preservation. And the pending farm bill in Washington that was working on yesterday on Capitol Hill, it would cut between $3.5 and $5 billion from federal support for conservation, a 5 to 8% reduction, which does not include the sequester that will happen in January unless Congress does something about its budget, which I'm not holding my breath for, by the way. We have wonderful opportunities, particularly here in New York, to promote local food systems and protect food sheds. However, nationally, local food systems are only 2% of farm production, 2% of the market. And so we have both an opportunity, but a challenge in taking it from a niche market into a more general economic vehicle. Now, if in terms of the environment and the environmental benefits and environmental challenges of farmland, if someone asked you whether you could protect your most valuable asset, reduce your pollution levels, and increase your long-term productivity, would you do it? And simply put, too many have not. No civilization has ever survived the loss of soil health and soil productivity. Between 1982 and 2007, every year we lost 1.7 billion tons of farm soil to erosion and sedimentation, reducing the amount of food we can produce and wreaking havoc on rivers, bays, and estuaries downstream. For this reason, AFT has successfully gotten the Senate, but not the House, to require conservation compliance for federal crop insurance. And that is one of our big issues in order to prevent that continued loss. At the same time, farmers are over-fertilizing their crops and leaving too much animal waste, potentially valuable fertilizer and commodity, unreclaimed. And they watch as those expensive resources and assets wash away with every rain, contributing to poor water quality. Few environmental problems can be corrected while also creating value and reducing business costs. But for farmers who cut their nutrient pollution, they can do both and do so easily. Healthy soils sequester carbon and hold it, while decaying soils release the CO2 they hold. In other words, agriculture is far easier to achieve environmental improvement on than more sewage treatment plants and more industrial treatment to attempt to achieve the same goal. And we face a challenge, which New York is addressing, of intergenerational transfer of land. Simply put, too many family farms are unlikely to be farmed by that family as the majority of the country's land mass turns over in the next 10 to 15 years to inheritors and heirs. Several challenges. One is, if not now, within the next few years, women will be the largest owners of family and individual farms. Women are more likely, based on research and surveys we've done, to adopt conservation practices. However, our conservation strategies continue to be based on a 1960s model, which does not recognize the changing demographic of our agricultural sector, and is not based again on surveys and research done by our staff, is not conducive to serving the needs of women in agriculture. We also are seeing, as the land changes hands, a rapid increase in the amount of farmland being leased outside the family. And those who rent their land have far fewer incentives to conserve it than the actual owner-operator. And so how do we reach those who hold those leases and those who farm it under lease in order to promote sound and healthy environmental and agricultural practices? And then lastly, young farmers. As New York farmland prices have gone up, how can new farmers access the market? And here is a place that I think New York is doing very, very well. We find some things here that New York is a leader in, particularly the farmland programs and efforts to tie new farmers to those who want to lease or sell their land, and create a system by which new farmers can access farmland. We find New York doing well in local food systems, in creating particularly a vibrant farm-to-institution program that David mentioned in his talk. I believe that is a model that needs to be followed elsewhere in the country. It is a leader in environment and agriculture, particularly the Agricultural Watershed Council in the Hudson and New York area, in which we found that it was far cheaper and far more effective to address New York's water quality problems through farmland protection and farmland conservation than it is to build the great pyramids of wastewater treatment in an attempt to address the same problem and do it less effectively. Now, however, New York is not a leader in any way on farmland protection. Compared to Pennsylvania, 485,000 acres in the neighboring state have been permanently protected through state investment. A total of $800 million from that state has gone into farmland protection over the last 20 years. New York is 1/5 of the amount of land preserved and 1/8 of the amount of money invested by comparison. New York is a follower when it comes to farmland protection through state intervention. And I challenge New York and I challenge the legislature to follow what its neighbors are doing, to catch up on farmland protection. New York can and I hope will be a leader in environmental protection in all areas. New York's agricultural sector is a $46 billion a year industry. At the same time, it is a challenged by sprawl, challenged by environmental problems, and challenged in terms of finding markets that can help them diversify away from the traditional resource-intense and environmentally damaging way of doing business. So with your help, that of our partners, the leadership of the many groups here today, we hope and expect that New York will be a model for the rest of the country when it comes to farmland protection, local food systems, and the intergenerational transfer of agricultural land. David said that if there are questions, that I can be fairly beaten up. So, David, I will turn it over to you. Okay. Well, thank you all very, very much. It's an exciting day. Thank you all. Whoa, standing room now. It's really quite extraordinary. So thank you all for your interest. I'm certainly encouraged to see this bigger group caring about these issues, trying to do something about it. So thank you.